Well, hey there, pharmacy owners. Dr. Lisa Faast here from Diversify RX and owner of two pharmacies. And I want to talk to you today about 503B pharmacies and 483s from FDA. That's a lot of numbers and a lot of acronyms. So I think it's really important that you, the pharmacy owner, pharmacy manager, key employee, really understand like this dynamic of outsourcing facilities, how to possibly vet them, how to know if they're good, because not all of them are. Now, I will say that most of them are. Absolutely, most 503Bs take their role in our healthcare system very, very seriously. And there's obviously a lot of rules to follow, and they do their best job at following all of them. However, in every industry, doesn't matter if it's healthcare, pharmacy, whatever, there are always bad apples that ruin the bunch for all of us good ones. And I'm going to post some recent FDA letters and 483s from two 503B pharmacies that, one, I don't recommend you use. You might actually be at risk if you have used them and dispensed their products. And so I think you need to pay careful attention to them and make sure you protect your patients and protect yourself. If you've ordered from some of them or one or both of them, you might even consider doing a patient recall of them, because the letters of like the conditions and the procedures that like they weren't doing proper is absolutely atrocious, just absolutely. So I'll post that information below. Look in the comments, the description, and I'll have the links there for you. So when we're talking about 503Bs, 503Bs are different than 503As. 503As is the typical pharmacy that you think of. They are pharmacies that are licensed in a state. Even if they're licensed in other states, but most 503As are just your small, normal community pharmacy. They can only dispense compounded prescriptions pursuant to a prescription for a particular patient. And it's just your normal community pharmacy. 503Bs, however, are what are considered outsourcing facilities, outsourcing for compounds. And so there's different rules that 503Bs have to follow. There's different compounds that they can make. They can make some things that 503As can't. They can't make some things that 503As can. And the reason that this is important is many 503As have been relying on 503Bs for compounded GLP-1s, for the compounded semaglutide, compounded tirzepatide, and other short products, like even some people, the vitamin C or some other things. So that's why the FDA created 503Bs, is so that they could have these pharmacies that follow good manufacturing practices and can outsource their products and distribute them to clinics, hospitals, or pharmacies to help relieve drug shortages or disruptions in the supply chain. So that's like where 503Bs sit. So a lot of pharmacies obviously have been helping their patients get the short supplied tirzepatide and semaglutide GLP-1s that are used for diabetes and weight management. And that's great. That's fantastic. Like, that's how it's supposed to work. But you as a 503A, as a pharmacy who buys from a 503B, just about every state law, every state that I could think of that I have researched, part of being able to buy from a 503B is you do your due diligence. Like, you make sure that you are choosing a good partner, right? And 503Bs, for the most part, again, like I said, are good. They're inspected by the FDA. They're registered with the FDA. You kind of expect the FDA to like take care of that. However, things can go wrong, and we know. And some people have a history of going wrong. And so I want to talk a little bit about that process. So when the FDA inspects a 503B pharmacy, the really cool thing about the whole process with 503Bs and inspections and letters and all that, it is all public information. So it is all available to you on the FDA's website. You can just go to Google and put in FDA 503B. Google will take you to the right spot. And so that's the really cool thing, is it's public information. You can easily do your researching and vetting by, at least starting there. Make sure they're actually registered as a 503B. When was their last inspection? What was the result of that inspection? And that's a great resource. Just go directly to the FDA's website. Now, when the FDA finds something at a pharmacy, doesn't matter if it's a teeny tiny little thing or a really, really big thing that's wrong, they issue what's called a 483. And that is the form where the inspector documents everything that they saw wrong. Again, It could be something little or something major. So in the fact that a 503B has a 483 does not mean it's a bad 503B. All right. Like absolutely not. And there's some 503Bs that got, bad looking 483s like in 2017, 18, and 19, when kind of the whole 503B stuff was getting started, people were learning. And then you'll see they cleaned up their act. They learned from those infractions, they changed their behaviors, and the things that they got in trouble before, like, aren't repeated in the future. Like, I like to see that. Like, nobody's perfect. I don't think there's many 503B pharmacies out there that are perfect if you've been in business for any length of time. Good manufacturing practices, even big manufacturers, big brand name manufacturers get 483. So again, the fact that they get a 483 is not necessarily make them, off limits to you or, in my opinion. But you have to read the 483. What did they get in trouble for? Was it just some like paperwork and maybe they didn't have a defined SOP? Or was it their batch failed sterility testing and they still sent it out to patients? There's different levels of infraction there, and you don't know by just seeing the little link that says 483. You actually have to open up and you have to read it. And that's how, that's where I start my vetting process. So, when 503Bs and started the semaglutide, tirzepatide, like, I was very leery. I take an approach of like, say no and, research later kind of thing. And so I was very leery. And so I spent some time digging into it, talking with a lot of executives at the 503Bs, talking to a lot of legal people, a lot of compliance people, to really understand that space. Because certainly I am not an expert in good manufacturing practices. Compound for 503As? Yes. Good manufacturing practices, no, it's like a whole other beast, right? It is not your normal compounding. So it is just completely different rules, completely different like framework in which they operate. So I spent a lot of time digging into that, but not everybody has to do that. Not everybody needs to spend 3 weeks, locked with compliance people, like figuring that out. You can just go to the FDA website again and read the 483s. Are you comfortable with what you're seeing? And I find many of the times that I am comfortable with some of it. Some of the people I recommend, some of the good ones, have had 483. Sometimes they've been years ago. Sometimes even if it was recent, it was a small little infraction. There was something on the label, whatever. Like it was some minor things. And then you read some 483s from some others that are atrocious, like absolutely like. You are putting your patients in grave danger. There's even some of them have letters from the FDA that's like on the criminal investigation side, because they're basically dispensing adulterate drugs. And then you as the, pharmacy that is dispensing to the final patient, if you're not doing your due diligence, you could be getting in trouble from your state board of pharmacy because you purchased drugs from somebody who had, publicly available information that they weren't following the rules, and you continue to purchase from them. So if you're a 503A pharmacy, which is that typical retail pharmacy, and you're buying products from a 503B, whether it's semaglutide, tirzepatide, or something else, and if you haven't done that due diligence, or maybe you did it a year ago, have a procedure where you do. The minimum you should do is go check out the FDA website. If there's something concerning there, maybe you have a call with the 503B. Maybe you go visit them. Like you take the next steps. For me, I find some 503B pharmacies that don't have a lot of problems. They've had some, like I said, some past 483s. They were like years ago. You can tell that, they haven't repeated the same mistake as they're continually inspected. Most 503Bs are inspected every 2 years from the FDA, give or take. So you can kind of see their history of like how they've done. And so for me, there's plenty of good ones out there that have great pricing, good minimums, can ship to most states, that I don't think you need to take a chance on somebody with an iffy 483. Like before, in the beginning of 503Bs, there was only a few, like there wasn't that many. And so your choices were limited. But nowadays, you'll see on the FDA website, there's lots of 503Bs. So I don't think it's worth, if you look at a 483 and you're like, ooh, like, would you want to take the medicine with, what the inspector observed? If the answer is no, then, you probably shouldn't purchase it for your patients and dispense it to them. So there's plenty of good 503Bs. So in the comments below, I'm sharing some recent letters from the FDA and 483s on two 503Bs that I do not recommend you purchase from. And if you have purchased from them, you might be at risk for some issues with your state board. You should look into them. So those two 503B pharmacies are ProRx and Medivant. Again, like I am totally not comfortable with like what I see on there. You know, if you are, that's up to you. And it's, you know, that's a great thing about independent pharmacies. We can all make our own choices. But if you have purchased any products from either of those 503B pharmacies, one, I think you need to look at those documents. You need to understand, you know, what products you purchased, you know, have they already been dispensed to patients? Did you quarantine them? Should you do a patient recall? Like you need to make some hard choices on maybe what you need to do based on what you read in those letters and those 483s. So I would highly recommend you do that. If you want to know some of the good guys, so the two 503Bs that I recommend very freely on our blogs and websites is PQ Pharmacy. They offer, you know, a nice variety of products. They don't just do semaglutide and tirzepatide. They have a nice variety of products. They can ship to just about every state. And they're fantastic. The team over there is really nice to work with, and a lot of my members that use PQ absolutely love them. The other 503B that I recommend is BPI Labs. They strictly only do the tirzepatide and semaglutide at this time. And again, like fabulous facility, you know, amazing people. John over there takes care of all of our people so fantastically, and they're good. You know, they don't have, if you read all the documents, like they don't have the chronic problems that some of the other ones seem to have. So there's no reason to, you know, put your people in danger. I will say that some of these other pharmacies, you know, they have massive marketing. They push really hard. They have salespeople, you know, that are DM people on LinkedIn all the time. They throw out these really low prices. I understand you're hurting for profit. I understand that you need to make as much money as possible. But sometimes if it's too good to be true with the price, like there's a reason, and it's usually not a good reason. If they're significantly less than what like everybody else seems to be charging, you have to ask yourself, like, what corners are they cutting? Because they're cutting something, right? Like they're not doing what everybody else is doing if they're able to charge, you know, a significantly lower price. And so this is just my urging to you to do your due diligence. Order from people who have a good history, have had good recent FDA inspections, do charge reasonable prices, you know, and just run a good, honest business that you can feel confident in dispensing that to your patients, because I know you guys want you want the best. You want the best product, you want a reasonable price, and you want your patients to be happy. Like that's not asking for too much. So, alrighty, I think that's it. And hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions about 503Bs, post your questions below. I'm happy to answer as much as possible. I you know, did a lot of digging into this, gosh, I don't know, a year and a half ago or so, as all this, you know, kind of started exploding. And contrary to some weird or rumors out there, I don't own any 503B pharmacy. That would really be really nice if I did. But my little old pharmacies are not 503Bs. And we don't even do sterile compounding in our pharmacies. So, but yeah, I don't own any 503B pharmacy, much less anyone that I recommend. So anyways, hopefully that information was helpful. If you have any questions about vetting, if you have any questions on like where to find something, again, post it below. Happy to help you. And let's all just go forth and serve our patients the best way possible with good quality vendors. So hopefully that was helpful. Let me know, and we'll talk again next time. Bye-bye.